Welcome, everybody. This is the Success Elevated Podcast. My name's Hayden Lee. I'm going to be your host today. And I'm sitting in with one of my good friends. I'm probably going to say that about all my guests. But here with one of my good friends, especially recently, we've spent a lot of time together. Jake Dye. Thanks for coming on the podcast,
Thanks
man.
for having me, man. Thanks for trusting in me enough to put me up on mic.
I just to give people a little bit of background, I texted Jake a couple nights ago about doing this podcast, and he was a little... You didn't feel like you had anything cool to say.
Yeah, don't release those text messages.
I think Jake has an interesting background, an interesting story, and I think it would be cool to talk about on the podcast for a lot of reasons. But I think a big one is your just background in what you do for work. A big part of that is you're an insurance agent, but you also help your wife manage a restaurant. You have a hobby farm at your house that you're trying to grow into something bigger. You're the president of our local chamber of commerce. You're on all these other boards and groups and whatever organizations. So there's a lot that we could talk about there, but I think my first big question is when do you sleep?
I'd like to get a sponsorship shout out here to Bang Energy. But,
no free ads. Yeah.
I sleep. I probably sleep 5 hours a night.
Yeah.
Get my 12:30 to 7:30, 6:30, 5:30 depending on the day. But that's when I sleep.
Yeah, you try. You figure it out, I guess.
During calving season, it's a little hit or miss more than that. But
yeah, I believe it, man. We both live in the same hometown now.
Yeah.
We're here in Blackfoot, Idaho. We didn't grow up together or anything, so I didn't know you much before becoming on the chamber, and just becoming friends with you the last few months, being on the chamber of commerce with you. Mm-hmm. It's like it's awesome to see you work and how well you work with other people, but I think it's interesting noticing how draining it can be at times. Like,
do I look drained?
You look wore out, dude. You look wore out sometimes.
I'm wore out.
And it's interesting because you still seem to just manage it so well. And I think that's why I started that. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. You figure out how to do it.
Yeah. Well, if you're asking a question there of how I do it, I would honestly say, a lot of it is, as you mentioned, my wife. And a lot of it too, I think about, we're running multi-generational businesses. So, I work with my father-in-law and his business with insurance. That will be, I'm not blood, but that would be a generational, transition. My wife runs a third generation business restaurant. Been here since '89. Her grandfather and grandmother started it, and then her mom and dad, and now her. So, just seeing, the head start that I have, coming into these businesses and seeing, I'm starting here versus where they started, down here. That's really the motivating factor in those things, to really keep pushing and see, like, when I go to sleep at night, not every night, but when I go to sleep sometimes, I do think about, I want to look ahead in 5 or 10 years and try to think back to this moment and say, I'd have never thought that we were here.
Yeah.
And, leveraging the opportunity we have with these, turnkey businesses to make them, to take it to the next level, Because I really think, that is the grind as an entrepreneur. If you're not doing that, you won't make it.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that I think I do anything great or that I have this, obscene drive. I maybe have some obsessive compulsive problems, but, it really is, I think I'm really just doing what is required to be a business owner. And I see, like you said, with the Chamber of Commerce, I could probably think of 30 business owners and name them in here that I think work just as hard or harder than I do to, support their payroll, keep a business, open, keep upkeep and support with their products and, based on whatever type of business they're running. I'm really just trying to run with the pack here in Blackfoot. So I really think it's pretty cool what Blackfoot has done, as far as the business community and commerce. So anyway, that I ranted.
No. It's an interesting thought. I do a lot of the same thought exercises, thinking forward 5 or 10 years.
That's the only way in the cattle industry you'll think you're making money.
That's what you think. Oh, if I can only do this 5 years from now, I'll pay off, X, Y, and Z. Yeah. No, it's an interesting thought experiment. And my wife, it's not something she's used to. We differ in personalities that way. She's much more of a realist and thinking about, okay, what do we got to do now to accomplish our goals, And I'm for whatever reason, I'm a dreamer, and I like thinking about, if I could do this, what could where could I be in 5 years? If I could do this, where could I be in 10 years? And I don't own a business, but I think that's a tendency that I have to do as well.
Where did you get that? If you don't mind me asking, where did you get that?
Those
activities.
I don't know, man. I have no idea. My dad's a little bit that way for sure. So some of it might be genetic, but it's an interesting experience to talk about. But when I was little, when I was 5, I had a younger sister pass away. She passed away from SIDS. So it was super unexpected. We didn't see it coming in any way. But I think, and I was young enough, so it might have just kind of been something instilled in me from my parents. My parents, for better or worse, decided to kind of live their lives from then on as just enjoying it. They planned for the future and thought of the future, but they really wanted to just enjoy life. And that was a kind of a turning point for them. They're like, hey, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So let's just enjoy and love life. And I think that's how it started for me, is just I just want to enjoy and love life. And that grew to a point where now I'm like, if what can I do in the future to help me enjoy my life more? If that makes sense. I don't know. That's kind of a roundabout way to get there. But from a young age, I've always just been thinking okay, if this happens, what can I do to leverage that to make me a better person, or, ultimately make more money, or, better support my family, my parents, my wife, my future kids. That's something I'm always, thinking about doing.
Yeah. Have you, why I asked is it made me really think of the E-Myth. Have you ever done anything E-Myth? Yeah. So it's, I think the book that I read was the E-Myth revisited by I probably will mispronounce it, Arbinger Institute.
Okay.
And I really conflicted with books. I really like, the principles that books teach you, but if you can't, act on those principles and introduce them into your everyday life, it's really no point. But very, watered down version of this E-Myth is, they say in a business, there's 3 types of people. They say you have the dreamer.
Okay.
And so when you said the dreamer, that's where it kind of triggered that. But they have the dreamer, you have the manager, and you have the technician.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I find interesting, is I relate to every one of those personalities.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you talk about, the restaurant, my involvement there is very minimal. It is something at the end of the day that maybe causes some stress and worry, and you feel some of the burden, when your spouse is running, something like that, with 40 employees, ever changing, our product cost. There was a post just recently, Carly Bingham at Bingham Bites had shared it, that I'd seen, that talked about how the costs have, varied month to month, and something you'll see a 300 or 800% increase on that last month you had no idea. So trying to just play that guessing game of,
you have no idea.
No idea what it's going to do. But anyway, where it's going with that is, pretty much at Homestead, I'm the technician. So,
right.
Really I'm the janitor. And really I think it's been something that's really been a huge benefit to me. I clean the grease traps every week.
Okay.
So,
you're being serious about being the janitor.
Dude, I'm serious. Yeah. So, if something needs fixed, and they ask me, I find it an honor to go kind of do that stuff. I like being handy, but I really, every week I'll go clean the hood, and so wash it all down and then spray out all the grease traps, and I've done that for 8 years. And I don't know, when I'm go to my my day job and I see all these people maybe thinking somewhat elevated of themselves, I'm still at least able to relate to that technician role, which I think is, to me, I would attribute if I would attribute success to me anyway, I'd attribute some of that through being able to keep that, technician mentality, instead of looking to be a manager or a dreamer. But all of those are crucial to steering a business. You need someone, I look at it like a ship. You need someone steering and pointing in a direction to make sure we're going there. A manager, getting all of the faculties to move in that direction, and then each one of those faculties, a technician, supporting that. So the E-Myth, I mean, it's really something
I'll have to check that out. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. All business owners, and I feel like when you're starting out, I'm sure you're wearing all of those hats, especially in a smaller setting. And then as you grow, you have to learn to either keep one of the hats on and delegate some of those others to other people, or, I think that you've got to learn to kind of balance those three roles
and try to learn how to wear all of those hats.
Yeah.
And that's really, I give so much props to, business owners, from my, bird eye view on this, of business owners in the 80s and 90s that had to wear all these hats with none of these, tech aids like QuickBooks, and they were balancing their own books, and they were ordering their own product, and nothing was quick.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine it, but, given today.
Crazy.
And they probably couldn't, think of it now either. But really, wearing these hats, is exhausting. Like you said, I have too many hats on, but, every business has just as many hats as I'm attempting to try to wear now. So
it's true. With, shifting gears a little bit, we're talking about the restaurant and your kind of role there with insurance and building your own book of business. I would think, at least, you're probably wearing more of the dreamer and the management hats, but and there are probably days as a technician, just the day-to-day operations, you have to do that as well. But how does a guy, 7 or 8 years ago, how do you start growing a book of business with insurance? Just because insurance is something interesting to me. Just before you go, I know so many people that have done it, or have at least made an attempt. Like, I have uncles that are really successful selling insurance. My dad, that's what he does for a living, sells Medicare supplements and stuff like that. Like, a lot of people do it, and a lot of people do well at it, but a lot of people don't. So what is so attractive about selling insurance, and how does a guy build it to a point that he can make a living off of it?
Well, I'm not going to say this about every insurance agent, because it's not a fair assumption, and they would probably hunt me down. And I could already think of people that, aren't coming from that. But maybe it's from a point of, you failed in something else, and now you're in insurance.
Okay, I gotcha. So I'm guessing you didn't, growing up, you weren't that, as a dreamer, you weren't dreaming of selling insurance.
No.
Okay.
No. So I had, honestly, a really interesting path. So I was the youngest kid in my grade. I went to Shelley, so Bingham County.
Yeah.
Your Snake River Panther, your Purple Panther rival. But
That's all right. That's all right. We won't hold that against you.
I've changed my ways a little bit here, so I am a Panther now.
Yeah, you are.
I played in the alumni tournament.
Hey, there you go.
That's got to
That counts. That counts.
Me a little bit.
You're now an unofficial member of Snake River.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I graduated early, and so before I was ready to go on my LDS mission, I went to 2 years of school at BYU, or I guess 2 semesters at BYU, Idaho. And I was, in school, I was in, AP courses. So by the time I went on my mission at 19, I had 56 credit hours already
that's awesome.
in school. So I was very, if I dare say, advanced as far as, my age and where I was with school. And so I went on my mission and came back, and on my mission, I had decided, well, before I left, I was studying physical therapy. Okay. So I was doing, nat and phys stuff, and I had kind of really dove deep into that route. So on my mission, I met some really cool attorneys. I went to Kentucky, so met some cool backwoods attorneys, cool. and I really, in what I was doing every day, I felt that my skills were maybe good enough to be some sort of attorney. I had a wake up call the first time I tried. So I was all gung ho. I was going to come back. I was going to go to like a level tier one law school, try to go through that. But the idea of, competing against classmates and that cutthroat mentality kind of scared me out of it. So total shift. I have no idea where this came from, but I studied live animal and carcass evaluation with an animal science major. So I went from physical therapy to law to live animal carcass evaluation.
3 very different things.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like my life now, just
wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, pick it and run with it. But so I went, through 3 years of school there. I ended up not graduating because this insurance opportunity actually came up. So while I was going to school, I worked at Sportsman's Warehouse.
Okay.
And at Sportsman's Warehouse, I wore 3 or 4 different hats. I ran, the hunting department or the camping department. We called it the gift bar, but it was like the knives and optics.
Yeah.
So I sold those, and then I was our inventory control specialist, and then the fish and game tag. So I kept putting hats on everywhere I went.
Yeah.
So anyway, Todd was needing help, and so I decided, well, I'm done with school. Forget school. I was going to school, and I was working on farm equipment, and I would go to the stockyards, and we'd look at cows as they walked across the scale, and I'd have to guess weights. So I had to be within 20 pounds of a weight or something.
Yeah.
So like now I'm like, well, what did I learn at school? How to look at cows good and how to work on farm equipment. So could have done that, in my hometown Blackfoot.
Yeah.
Spending a day, at any one of these farms or feedlots here. But I kind of lost where we were on the question. But
no, you're good. You met Todd, and Todd needed some help with insurance.
Yeah, Todd needed some help because his brother had actually taken a higher position within Farm Bureau.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a family business, My wife's uncle, Chris Burke, he's an insurance agent in Aberdeen. He was a vice president at one point of training new agents in the whole state of Idaho. And so that was the opportunity he took, which left Todd with a large client base that needed serviced. And I think, if I'm being honest, Todd wanted Melissa to come work for him more than he wanted me to come work for him. At that point, looking back,
Yeah. It's worked out okay for you guys.
It's worked out. But so I started, and initially I was working like 3 days a week, and I just remember, none of the guys are really old that I work with. Old is something that's relative, and it's shifted really from my 22-year-old mindset to now. But I felt like I was like this young kid that didn't know anything, getting thrown in with all these big dog players that had, decades of personal experience with almost, large majorities of the community, and I had no niche.
Right.
And it scared me. I mean, working in a job that's commission based, and I'll be honest, for a good while there, I made $800 a month in insurance sales. So, I mean, I was glad I had a sugar mama to kind of keep things rolling, because it was tight for a good while. And really what saved me was we had a tech shift with our company. And all of these old dogs that, or big dogs that had these learned ways and practices, they had a little bit more of a lag with the tech shift than maybe me, where I wasn't proficient with their other older ways. And so it gave me a huge advantage. And at that point, once I found my advantage there, I took it and I ran. And I'd honestly say now I've been able to run with a large majority of the insurance producers in our area. But it really is because I'm in a lot of circles, because I wear a lot of different hats. I was for a while there, I was the race car insurance guy, because I had a little street car, and I'd go racing. It was embarrassing, but I'd go like race at night. I mean, probably you should cut that part, but maybe not.
But no, you found a niche that you were able to service those those people.
Yeah, so I was able to kind of just get in with a group and service them, and luckily my retention, because I care, and that's really the big thing, is I do care about taking care of somebody, and my biggest thing is I want to do business with everybody that does business with me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're a customer of mine and you sell something, you bet your bottom dollar that I'll be coming and buying something from you. And if I haven't and you watch this, call me, because I will show up, because that is really important to me, that we support
each
local.
other. Yeah.
And I really don't care if I can order it cheaper on Amazon, or even if maybe the product is better. I really don't think it is, because I'd rather buy it from someone here and have that person to call, because that's what I want to do. So kind of going off that golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. That's the value I want people to see in me, and so I try to find that value here.
That's cool, man. It's such a big. I think it's a thing that is lost in the insurance world. Granted, I have, like I've said, I have family members that I think do like what you're saying, and I think the most successful,
and I know them well.
Right,
they do great.
Yeah, and I
respect them. Yeah.
And I think the most successful insurance people are do it how you have done it. That you treat people how you would want to be treated, and I think that's probably a huge part of it, because people complain about insurance all the time and how it's a pain in the butt to deal with at times, and it's frustrating, and you're trying to make a claim, or you're trying to get a good rate, and it's frustrating to deal with that. And it's interesting that because I know this about you just from working with you outside of your insurance job, that I know that you have a high level of integrity, and that's how you want to be treated as well. So that's how you're going to operate with insurance, and how you're going to operate your business. And I think you're just in general in owning a business, you're going to be more successful if you treat people that way. Like if you're like, okay, if I was in their shoes, how would I want this business owner to treat me? Like, you're just going to be better at your job and more successful.
Well, and my big thought here lately, just like you're saying, I'm glad that I can call you friend. I'll call everybody here a friend. I want more friends, and I've been thinking a lot about that comment, and slogan, you show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And
really
so,
good.
I mean, it's deep. And right now, I see this integral group in Blackfoot, and I feel like they're all friends. And they're able to make decisions. And that's really, it's not definitely a part of business, but it's a part of business I like.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's cool, man. Do you, so being an insurance agent, big part of it's sales, and you've talked about that. Like, you have to be willing to sell yourself and sell your product.
Yeah.
Most business owners, entrepreneurs, at some point, sales is a huge part of what they do.
Oh yeah.
In order to grow your business, you have to be willing to do some sales, regardless of what industry that you're in. Do you? What are some things? Sales, I enjoy it to an extent, but there are parts of it that are scary.
Yeah.
Why is sales so scary? And what are some ways that you've overcome it yourself to help grow your book of business? Maybe it's not scary for you. Maybe that's a bad question. It's interesting to hear what you say.
Your first question, why are sales scary? Okay. What was the second part of that?
How do you overcome that to grow your business or grow your book of business?
Yeah. Well, I know you talked that later you want to talk about books, but that's the problem. I keep going to books and
that's perfect.
Where I learned some of this stuff. So one book that I'm reading right now is called The Comfort Crisis by, I think, Michael Easter is his name. I could be mixing up authors, but I think
Comfort Crisis.
I think I'm right. Yeah, Comfort Crisis.
Okay.
And so he talks about how, and I'm going to go off really far on this one.
No, you're good.
He talks about how we have to find our edges and find our limits. And he talks about culturally all these different cultures that do this. So he goes into the Comanche Indians, and he talks about how they would go for 30 days into the woods with no weapons or no anything and live off the land and have this spiritual experience in finding their edge and finding their limit and finding what they really truly can do. And so then he goes in, there's a Maasai tribe in Africa. And to be considered a warrior in their tribe, you have to hunt a lion, and you have to hunt a lion with a spear and bells tied to the end of the spear, because they want the lion to turn and face you
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, that's some deep stuff. And then, coming from my Christian background, they also relate, in the New Testament where Christ fasts for 40 days and 40 nights. They're tying all of those, pieces together.
Yeah.
And saying, all of these people found their limits, whether it was culturally or what it was, and pushed, past those limits.
Yeah.
And they kind of laughed, to it. And so what he goes and does in this book is he's an author, and he goes on a hunting trip in the tundra to hunt caribou. And it's like a 30-day hunt. And he's going for this, edge of my limit experience.
Yeah.
And so he laughs though about how we want to go work out in a gym, but we want the gym to be between 68 and 72 degrees where we go, exert ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's funny, and that's part of where I'm, where's my edge? But then I'm like, okay, well, it's here. And I'm like, well, am I being kind of a pansy and putting limitations and stipulations on where my edge is?
I totally get you.
If I want to make a sell, am I putting in the time and am I understanding the product well enough? So, I mean, I like that analogy and those thoughts and really embodying it. But to answer, product understanding to me is huge.
Yeah.
I know salesmen. I've met salesmen that really don't even need to understand the product and can sell it. But to me, I'm not that good a salesman. I need product understanding. And then after that, I have to love it. And I truly do anything that I am selling. We were in a meeting not too long ago talking about the chamber and talking to a company about the chamber. And I legitimately believe in the direction of the chamber right now. And that's why I can sell it. And I'm lucky to work for a company with a product that I believe in. Yeah. And I've really seen insurance help people. So I do think that if anybody could be in the industry long enough to see, a chance of insurance helping someone, I'm not going to lie, there are situations where somebody might feel slighted where, maybe you don't get the total payout you need, or you got charged an extra month of insurance. Those are the bad ends of it. But, I've delivered, life checks, death benefit checks. And, I've seen, homes totally torn apart and people so frazzled, and to be able to come in and help handle that. You had Kenyon on last time, and, they're a company that we rely heavily on. And I mean, there's other great ones, but they're ones that I've worked with quite a bit. And, to come in and see a situation be totally, reversed, and really to have someone made whole again. That's really what's cool. Seeing tractors burnt down, and I mean, that sort of stuff. So when I'm able to have experiences, that's where, I really think, and I don't view it that way, but I really think that's where the power kind of comes in on being able to make a sell, is when you've had enough experience to tell someone about, this can really help you and believe it.
Totally, man. I think, you've got to love your product without any question. You've got to love just love what you do and believe in it enough. And I think that can push you over the edge. But I love what you were talking about with finding your edge and going beyond it, and finding your limit and going beyond it. I am a big time believer that, and this isn't a unique thought. I'm sure there's a million podcasts or whatever, but that you cannot grow in your comfort zone. You're never going to become a better person or grow your business or do anything of any worth unless you get out of your comfort zone and push yourself beyond what you think you're capable. You're never going to become better. And I try and operate my life as trying to become a better person today than I was yesterday. And I hope that I am better today, that I could, if I were to rewind the clock a couple years, I'd be embarrassed of who that person was. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think I should want to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And I think that's with sales and growing your business and, just building and growing a business in general as an entrepreneur. You have to be willing to get outside your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. You're never going to be able to accomplish anything unless you try and do that. And that's, putting it into like real world examples, like the lion hunting and stuff like that, like it's so true. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just wanting to push yourself beyond that is how you're going to be able to accomplish those big goals and those big picture goals. So,
I mean, it's grandiose, but
no, it totally is. and that goes back to us being dreamers a little bit, I think.
Exactly.
But
we maybe, you guys are like, where are these guys at in the clouds right now? But
I'm sure there are people listening that it just does not make sense. And they're like, what in the heck are these guys talking about?
Yeah.
Like dreaming about the future and hunting lions with bells on a spear. Like, what are they? But I think it's so true, man. I think if you're going to grow your business, sales is a part of it.
Yep.
It might not be selling insurance, but if you're going to grow your business, sales is a part of that. And that's a mindset you have to get into. Believe in your product, love what you're doing, and then push yourself. Like, don't be afraid to push yourself. And it should feel weird. It should feel scary.
Yeah.
I'm glad that sales feels scary to me, so that I have something that I can be like, okay, like I want to try and get better at this. Like I want to try and do a better job of, helping people find value in the product that I provide, and I think it's a good thing. It should feel like that.
Well,
so.
and really I'll answer the second part, maybe not so tangent-y, but what's helped me overcome any fear that I've had, that I wouldn't say that I don't have fear, but it's really easy to go through sales and to make a sale and to have, success with a process. And so we are, in our office and with our, book, we are very process oriented. We've actually brought some more team members on. So really with our team, we probably have 6 people, working a book of business. And the process is important because I want them to have the same experience, whether it's with me or with our front secretary or with, my new assistant that we've brought on.
Yeah.
Or with Todd,
a different agent should have the same experience. Yeah.
We want it to be the same. And so a process is really where we're able to kind of alleviate that. And I've been able to see this new guy find a lot of trust and security in our process because he's thought, well, it's worked with Todd or it's worked with Jake, it should work, with me.
Yeah.
And then I also, I find myself finding really a lot of security in that same thing. But it is just, finding your edge.
Yeah. Well, and like you said at the beginning when we were first talking, like it's those 3 hats, like dreamer, manager, technician. Like the technician and manager side of things is like building a process and building a product that you're proud of and that works well, and then go out and do it. Go out and sell it. Go out and try and build it. So that's super, super interesting. I love the idea of that. I love talking about that because it's so relatable, and I think it's relatable whether you own a business or not, or just in your personal life. Like I was saying, like I want to be a better person, and that's like personal, spiritual relationship with my wife. Like I want to be better. So like let's push myself beyond. Let's get out of my comfort zone. Let's do some things that are going to challenge me and make me, do some things I'm not comfortable with, and then like build a process to try and be better.
Well, one of my bosses that I've had, he told me, a pattern created anywhere is a pattern created everywhere. Talking about those different facets of life, a pattern created at the office, that runs to you with home. And so, I have come, in talking to your earlier questions of how do I manage, everything. That is one of the things, like right now, I really don't miss bath time. Like I have twin girls at home. They're 18 months old, and I don't miss a bath time. Like whatever's going on, like 7:15, I'm going to be at the house and I'm going to give my girls a bath. And that's my time, with them. So that's really something that I've, found important is making and scheduling, those things of importance and becoming process oriented so you can have a life. And the one thing that I would say I really find frustrating about the insurance industry that I wish maybe the community understood is, maybe you can come to work one day and you see what your workday maybe looks like to some degree. I don't know. Maybe. Most people can go to work and know what their workday is going to look like to some degree. Well, I can't plan hardly anything because I'll have my renewals that I need to call that month, and underwriting activities and all these things that have to get done that should be on my calendar. But, and I find it important for walk-ins. I'm not telling people not to walk into my office, but when somebody walks in and wants to meet and never has talked to me before and calling with an emergency or with a claim, that's stuff we can't control, but it's really hard to understand what your day is going to be and have a process when you're so reactive to everything. So that is one thing that, maybe it'd be nice the public knew that it's not that I don't want to take your call right now. It's that I am a 100% reactive person to the day.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's interesting, and it is hard, and it does exhaust, and I think that's why a lot of people do burn out. Is it's so hard to have the right headspace with that.
Totally. Yeah. It's something that, I don't think a lot of people recognize, like, as an insurance agent. That's something I hadn't even really recognized, that your day is 100% dictated by outside things that you can't necessarily control. You can build a good process, you can have goals and aspirations, and have a plan of what you're going to do that day, but a lot of your day is dictated by outside factors.
Well, and the cattle are also that way too.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about your hobby farm, dude. How does a guy? I mean, I guess you did study that a little bit in college in one of your 3 degrees. One of your 3 majors. But why? How does a guy that sells insurance get involved in the cattle industry and start a hobby farm?
Tax write-offs.
Well, I guess that's a good idea. That's a good reason.
Well, we have some dreams with it, that's for sure. But honestly, I am a deep thinker. I'm honestly embarrassed. I probably didn't really want to share this, but I will. You can tell me if it's worth talking about later. But so I was able to help one of my friends, for quite a few years, night calf. I had no cows of my own at this point. And so any of you that have maybe, seen the miracle of life with cows, sometimes you have to pull a cow or pull a calf because, it's a younger cow or it's way big calf or it's backwards,
Right.
Any of these, slew of problems. But I watched, so generally mother cows are mean for the most part. Not all of them, but a lot of them can get pretty ornery, get in labor, just probably like most people in labor. But you got to put them in a head catch to some degree. Maybe some real hardcore cowboys don't. But so we put this cow in the head catch, and she was trying to kill us the whole time we were trying to get her in there. And we get her in there, and she's fighting us the whole time. And so we get the chains wrapped on this calf, and this calf's backwards. Like, we got to get it pulled out so once that umbilical cord rips, and if that calf's face is still in the sack, it'll go to take a breath, and it will breathe in all of that.
It'll suffocate. Yeah.
It'll suffocate. So when you're pulling them, you have to be fairly quick and honestly fairly decent at pulling a backwards calf. And luckily we were decent at it. And so there was a moment in that kind of chaos that I felt like, even though this cow doesn't, have really any way to communicate with us, we were definitely on the same page. And so it was like this weird, and I remember it, and this was probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I loved it. It was that feeling was addictive, to have something that's definitely not going to communicate with you, to be on the same page and having this interaction. And I found it relaxing. So, and now we have a cow calf operation in the backyard at our house, and we got about 25 pair. This next year we're gonna grow pretty heavy, but I still kind of find some of these things relaxing. Maybe not as relaxing as I did when I was doing it leisurely, but I just had an instance where I had a calf that wasn't able to nurse off of its mother. So I was having to every day milk this cow out to try to get this calf to be able to nurse. And with all my other jobs, it was taking 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. I was getting frustrated. And it definitely was not an ease on my day or my mental, safe space. It was causing some serious stress. And that's when I do get the most ornery. That's when the cow stuff isn't working right. But I went out 3 or 4 days after, and I see that calf just milk drunk out there, just finally had been able to nurse. And I find more success in that than probably about anything else that I do.
That's cool, man.
You know, maybe not every kid stuff's pretty well up there too, but I'll probably get in trouble for that. But I really do love that cattle thing. Is really kind of all I'm trying to iterate there. Is I do, for some weird reason, find it to be relaxing. I don't definitely want to do it commercially, but it's maybe some of my release.
That's cool, man. It's cool that you're able to do something like that you love, and that you care about it as much as you do. There's they talk about this with professional athletes. I don't want to make it awkward and compare you to a professional athlete.
I mean,
but
if you must.
But there's this, in high stress situations, they've done like blood work and tested athletes before, and a lot of people in high stress situation, they get a dump of adrenaline, and it spikes their heart rate, and it does a lot of things that keep your body alive, but are not good for like peak performance. But professional athletes, especially like top tier professional athletes, they don't get that spike of adrenaline, and their heart rate stays the same. In fact, in some cases, it'll lower, and it's almost relaxing. And they'll talk about, and I'm sure you've seen a video or something where they'll talk about how, in a certain moment, game-winning shot or something, that they felt like it all slowed down. It got really, really slow for them. And it's an interesting thing, and they find it almost relaxing. And it's interesting that in that high stress situation, you're talking about trying to help that cow give birth, and you're trying to get that calf out before it dies. Like, you almost found it like this weird, like, relaxing sense. Yeah. Like, and I think it's because it's something that you love and that you care about, and you care for these animals, it becomes like as much hard work and brutal as it is, like, it becomes relaxing for you. Yeah. And it becomes a part of your day that you enjoy.
Yeah, it's just not relaxing when the bills come.
Outside of that, if you could just get rid of the bills, it'd be a good time.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept that, not a lot of people know about, and it's almost like they're like different people. But I think it's interesting that you phrase it like that, because I've almost thought, you think of professional athletes or people that are these top tier physical condition, that they're like almost like different people than us. Yeah. But everybody has their thing.
I'm not top tier.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Speak for yourself. No, but I think everybody has that thing that they find relaxing in a high stress situation. That everybody's got like a hobby. I don't know how to put it into words necessarily, but I think we're all the same, and we all have those things that we just find relaxing and we enjoy that maybe other people don't. Yeah. And
people think I'm crazy, I'm sure, for that. They're going to listen to this talking about birthing a calf and nursing calves. Like, what the heck?
But I think it's interesting, and I think people relate to that more than you think if they think about it in the big scheme of things. That there are things that help us relax, and it's different for everybody. Yeah. So that kind of leads me into how I want to wrap up. Okay. If you're okay. Yeah. So we've talked about a whole bunch of stuff today, and we've kind of gone in circles at some point. So I hope people can get out of this what they can. But I wanted to finish with the 3 questions that I ask everybody. I called it rapid fire last week with Kenyon, and it turned into a larger conversation that I really enjoyed. So it didn't really turn into rapid fire. So I won't call them rapid fire questions. But 3 questions I want to finish with. You've already talked about, favorite podcast or book. Are there any other books right now that you've been reading that you've enjoyed, that you felt like you've helped, or maybe that you've read in the past that have kind of helped you grow your business or grow who you are as a person?
Well, I feel like there's the same 10 books that everybody references.
Yeah.
And so,
but you've referenced 2 that I haven't heard of, so those were good.
Oh, good. Yeah, good. But I really do embody the mantra too of leaders or readers. I think if you read and you don't implement anything, then maybe you need to reassess what reading is. But,
gotcha.
But this other book, I read it, probably a year ago, but I think about it quite often. Is The Obstacle Is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Okay. But it really dives into Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
And like Stoicism and kind of all of that, like the Daily Stoic and stuff like that. But it talks about, through adversity. I mean, just kind of like that other one I earlier referenced. Through adversity, we're able to find, our true our true self and really see our best self. And the life of Marcus Aurelius is insane. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's really a pretty easy read. I'd recommend it though.
Yeah, people should go Wikipedia him because it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do relate to him. One of the biggest things that I find so interesting with him is the level of stress. I mean, he was one of the largest leaders of the world, and
Right.
And for probably one of the longest periods of time. I don't know if that for sure, but I mean, he had like a 30-year
Yeah,
reign.
I think
But,
something like that.
they talk how unemotional he was, and maybe somebody thinks that's really negative, but I come from a place where I really had to work on my controlling my anger. If you've played basketball with me or seen me throw a fit, it's I'm definitely not beyond a prima donna breakdown, but just to see someone in the high stress situations that he is, really handle it so well.
That's cool.
That's one thing that I really had a big takeaway on from that book. But so that'd be my book reference.
Well, you've given us
Away.
well, you've given some great ones. So I think people should go check those out. I'm gonna have to go check out the one talking about the lion thing.
Yeah,
That thing.
the comfort crisis.
Comfort crisis sounds fascinating.
Comfort crisis, E-Myth revisited.
E-Myth.
And yeah, the obstacle is the way.
That's cool, man. Second question.
Okay.
We've talked about a bunch of things that you do, and you kind of talked about how your hobby farm has kind of been a way for you to relax. But is there anything else that a long day of dealing with me with the chamber, or coming in and doing a podcast, or going to work and selling insurance, how do you relax or shut your mind off at the end of the day and recharge? Sleep.
See, I don't do that very
Yeah,
often.
you don't do that very much either. Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of it recently, I struggled with that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I still struggle. I had quite this string of insomnia for probably 10 years. So it's it's really a problem for me. But I'd really say in the last little while, if you have problems sleeping, just have kids.
It'll wear you out enough that
They'll
you'll
wear
just
you out. But
sleep yourself.
no, I mean really, it's been focusing on family and reading. That's really how I do find my
Kind of a twofer there.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's your family is a big part of who we are, and who, I think family is a underutilized resource, especially in with entrepreneurs and business owners that rely on your family. Help, let them support you and support them, and it can be a way to help you recharge.
Well, and my wife really knows how to tell me to turn it off.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
But
Last question. You started your book of business with selling insurance 8 years ago.
mm-hmm.
And you've been doing a lot for a long time, but if you could go back 8 years ago and talk to your younger self then, what's one thing that you would tell yourself?
One thing's hard.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna
tell them a lot.
I'm gonna make myself
invest
stick to one.
in Apple stock. No, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick to one thing, and really the first thing that comes to my mind, and as I kind of try to vet it as before it comes out of my mouth, I really think that it's what I would say is, be patient with yourself, because life is learning, and if you're not learning, you're not trying to succeed. And so to ever expect that you should know how to do something, right off cuff, and I, being a new father, that was one thing. I expected that I could change diapers and get babies to sleep with this just natural emotional connection, and I was frustrated that I couldn't do that. And so, that would be what I want to tell myself as a new father. Be patient with yourself. You've never done this. So, with insurance, be patient with yourself. You've never done this. Because generally, if the passion's there, you'll figure it out. Just don't beat yourself up through the process.
That's cool, man. Being patient is it's incredibly difficult, and I think we've talked about some awesome things about pushing yourself and having a process and working hard, and those are all great. And I think that's what's my big goal with this podcast is to help people have real advice. And I think that's some real advice. Like, it's every motivational book or freaking podcast out is just, you're not working hard enough. You're not, you don't sleep ever. Like, don't relax ever. And I think at times we just need to be reminded to be patient.
I remember reading a Dale Carnegie book. He's like, you're worried about, I think it's stop worrying and start living, I think is the, and yeah, that's like what he talks about. He's like, I think he says insomnia is a blessing. Like, you don't need to sleep. And he's like, you can just keep working. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I can't operate like that. Like, being patient and taking the time to recharge. That's great advice, man.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hopefully there's a nugget in there for somebody, but really it was a great activity just to do with myself and really kind of have to come up with answers. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, man. You've become a good friend of mine, and I value your opinions, and I value what you have to offer. And I think, I know people are going to find great value in what you've had to say today. So
yeah,
thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe on any major podcast platform or check out our website at successonpoint.com.